We're continuing our podcast, our series on long-term athletic development. Now, up to this point, we've talked about the earlier years, from 0 all the way up to about 10 years old. Today, we're going to be discussing probably the most pivotal age or ages for developing that effective base. That's your athletes from 9 years old all the way to 16. Talking about long-term athletic development with Charlie Marlowe today on the Personal Fitness Podcast. Good day and welcome to the Personal Fitness Podcast. I'm Garrett Williamson, president of Personal Fitness. Thank you so much for joining us today for another installment in our long-term athletic development program. Now, my specialist on that, and since I keep messing up the words, obviously is Charlie Marlowe. Charlie, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back.
Glad to have you, man. And we appreciate the comments we've had about this. And we've actually had some of our current members and also some of our incoming members that have heard the podcast and have been very interested in the different steps we're talking about. Now we've got this one, and we've got one other that we're going to be doing, kind of capping this off in next week's podcast. But listen, if you missed any of them, just Google Personal Fitness Podcast. Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can go on our Facebook page and find it. But you can go back and listen to any of the episodes, or welcome to call us, and we'll be more than glad to send you the podcast you need, or help you understand the different level where your particular athlete may be. To get in touch with us, you can call us at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. EDGE. Pretty cute, huh? You can also reach out to me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. And, of course, that's our website and our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter at TeamPE. Okay, Charlie, diving into this. And this is actually, you and I sit there and spend time going over this and talking about how we want it, because I'm learning a lot about this myself. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating because it's taken an athlete from basically nothing to all the way up to the correct way to lead them into a successful to be a success at sports. Yeah. In fact, you talked about the dangers of that. Dr. Andrews mentioned. Yeah. And not doing so. Now we've already covered just a quick rehash on this. Mm-hmm. We covered the earlier ages and what we talked about. Just a quick rehash on what we've covered.
Yeah, so we covered active start and fundamentals on the last podcast, and basically what we went over is the importance of developing physical literacy, and that we hammered that through the whole podcast, and we got some good response from a lot of our clients just talking about physical literacy. And what that is really just having an understanding of the movements you're doing and what muscles are activating throughout that movement. And so our role as trainers and coaches is to help the client understand. And we said some ways we can do that is through cueing and progressions and regressions. Give
them a quick example of I know one I use as far as cueing, but that's basically what a trainer does. But it's explaining. It's explaining basically, okay, you're moving this weight up and down, but what's going on? How are you firing the muscle? And there's one you use for balance, which is really cool.
Yeah, this one really helps a lot, and it's very, very simple. But a lot of times, see a client having some trouble with a single leg exercise and balance, and they might not feel very stable in their foot. And then I'll let them try to figure out for themselves, and then I'll say, just try really sticking your big toe into the floor and really pushing that big toe. And then they try that, and as soon as they initiate the movement, I mean, it's like they've done it a million times, and their balance is instantly better. And that it helps turn on the glute muscle and just really focus on anchoring your foot to the floor.
That's the big thing about cueing, like he's talking about. What are you saying? He said he's talking about those different muscles firing. You actually start making that mind-body connection. Begin understanding. Okay, what muscles are activating, and then of course that translates into a sport. I use that with swimmers all the time, learning how to activate their lat. Then they can actually feel it when they're pulling their hand through the water. So, exactly. But you called this the stage that we're talking about today. You called this the probably the most pivotal age as far as developing, what have you. So this is called learn to train.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it, man.
Yeah, so this learn to train and the other one we're going to go over is train to train. It's probably my favorite developmental stage. It's what I'm most passionate about because, like we said, this is when you really focus on developing those fundamental movement skills. And what I like to say, and something that I heard from a famous powerlifting coach, Louis Simmons, he said, "A pyramid is only as tall as its base." And that really hit home with me. So, meaning,
bring that home for us. I follow you. I like the phrase.
Right.
But a pyramid is only tall as its base. Give me. What are you talking about here?
So, if you have a narrow base, you can only go so high. And so the wider you build your base, the more potential you have to grow. And so with that, in this learn to train stage, the fundamental movement skills that we begin to establish in the active start and the fundamentals should be further developed. And so basically, an athlete's full potential could be compromised if they don't continue to develop those fundamental movement skills in the learn to train stage. Okay.
So that's what you're talking about as far as the pyramid was concerned, is making sure that you've got a good foundation, just like building a house.
Yep.
Whenever you're building a house, you've got to have a great foundation. The whole thing's going to come down no matter how you build it. So that's what we're talking about in this phase, and that's what he means by, of course, building that wider base. So talk to us about what does it mean to build that base, and think about it. It's called learn to train. So
exactly, and so the way we would structure a session for an athlete or client of this age range is really just emphasizing repetition. So we're just going to be grooving the movement patterns, and not really much emphasis on straining or really struggling through, finding a failure point. We're really just trying to teach them how to do the movements correctly.
Right.
And so repetition is key in the learn to train stage, just so they have a good understanding of what they're trying to do.
Okay. So going back to the physical literacy that we talked about in the last podcast, understanding what the body is doing, and now I like this repetition thing. You want to basically want to understand the basic movements. Make sure you're doing them correctly, because if not, that's what you mean by messing up the base. How many kids do we see come in here? They've worked out at school. They've been training in a gym at school, whatever. They come in and work out with us, and how many times do you have to undo what's been done?
And that's, an issue you can see is, if they learn it the wrong way first, then you might have to go back and start from square one and try to rebuild. And so going back to the repetition thing, I came across something a while back, and it really hit home with me, and it had to do with the process of human learning, and it's John Wooden's 8 laws of learning. And so the first one is going to be explanation. So verbally explaining how to do something, and then you're going to go into demonstration. So you're going to show them how you would do it. They're watching you do the movement. And then imitation. So then the client would try it for themselves, and then try to figure it out on their own. And then the next is 5 repetition. So
that's how you get 8.
Exactly.
I like that.
So,
I like that.
Yeah, 8 laws of learning. So you got by explain, demonstrate, imitate, and then repetition. And that's how that's how you learn, is just continue to repeat the process. But this is what is really important. And you hear this phrase thrown around a lot, and practice makes perfect.
Right.
You hear it all the time.
Right.
And that's not true at all. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And so if you're practicing something.
Wait a second now. I've heard that all my life. Practice makes perfect. But I like what you're saying about that. The practice makes permanent.
Practice makes permanent. So if you're practicing something incorrectly, then all you're doing is ingraining that incorrect pattern in your head. And so and you see it all the time. If you do something the wrong way for years and years, and then that's where different imbalances and things that we see from our adult clients, it's just a compound effect of them doing it the wrong way for a long time. And so that's where practice is important, definitely, but practicing the right way, and that's where when we come in and ensure that they're doing it the correct way. So practice doesn't make permanent, or makes permanent.
So that's what you're focusing on the learn to train. phase. Anything else in that, or are we ready to go to talking about the train?
One other thing, and so that would be teaching intent for an exercise, and by intent I mean it's very easy to go through the motions, and and with the athletes, especially at that age range, they don't really understand how their bodies are working and how the capability that they have to train hard, and they don't understand that. That's why it's called Learn to Train. We're teaching them how to push themselves and actually how to strain. And so basically teaching intent is, if I say jump as high as you can, that some kids might just do like a little jump, but if you say you try to jump there and touch the ceiling, you're going to get a different response out of that kid if you instead of just saying jump as high as you can. But if you tell them to try to reach for something or try to jump up there and tap the door frame, they're going to jump a lot higher. And so teaching that intent, there's different ways to do it, but that's just another way to establish that base of learning to train.
Sure. Well, and that makes sense. That's putting it in a way they can understand it.
Yeah.
I never forget a track athlete. She was very, very, very goal oriented. She was very driven. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say any names on here. We have some like that are extremely driven. And she was goal focused, and her coach didn't pick up on that. Great coach, know him personally, nothing against him. And she would ask him, what give me some times to hit. I need some, and he would say, just run as fast as you can. But as soon as he gave her, well, look, you're probably in this round, whatever, she hit it. Mm-hmm. And so again, understanding. But is that all you mean by that? I mean, there's as far as the intent is concerned, does that go also into like lifting, what have you? So
yeah, so even with lifting, there's different cues you can give an athlete, make them just go a little bit harder. And so with the squat, if you tell them, I want you to move the bar faster, and so if they're moving like a heavier weight, they might not really be moving it faster, but it's the thought process of I'm trying to move this faster, and so and in that way they're producing more force. They might not be actually moving it faster, but their muscles are having to work harder and having to strain harder.
Okay, kind of becoming a little more explosive.
Exactly.
What have you? So this goes into different things, different cues that I've used where I've had people like trying to engage their lat by pushing the elbows down and also drive it, like trying to drive your chest through the bar at the top. So basically that goes into that's a form of cueing, and that's what Carly was mentioning earlier. I'm driving that home on purpose because that's the sign of a really good trainer, is to be able to cue the correct way so that somebody understands it, makes that connection.
Yeah, make it click.
Yeah. It's another reason why we have all of our clients trained with multiple trainers, because I may say drive your elbows down and 1,000 times to a client, and then Charlie comes up and says actually push your chest through, and bingo, it clicks with them.
Yeah.
So, and with kids, it's even more so.
Right. Yeah.
As far as that goes.
There's, like I said, there's special ways you can get them to understand it. By giving them, I like to use the jumping example. Try to, touch the roof and just give them something that might not be achievable, but it's something they're trying to strive for, or something. Same thing with like running sprints. Like I'll have them chase each other or something, just by, instead of them just running it themselves, by chasing another kid, they're going to run that much faster, trying to catch them. So
I like that, man. So
yeah.
Okay. So that's teaching intent. And what does that lead to?
So after we've,
sorry. I'm sorry. Before I jump ahead, ages on the learn to train phase. And remember what we said about this, and don't let me take any words out of your mouth, but when it comes to long-term athletic development, it's not really the number on the calendar. It really isn't. It's not just a number on the calendar. It happens to be their developmental stage. And of course, our staff knows how to evaluate that. But just to give you a point of reference.
Yeah, so the learn to train stage is going to be male is 9 to 12, and then female is 8 to 11. Like you said, that range right there is just a time frame of which they should be around in this stage. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be right at 8. It could be later and towards 11 or 12. So
also, but also from what I'm understanding, especially some of the kids we've had come in that we've had to kind of undo things, that may put them at least briefly at that phase. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh no, you're correct. I mean, you could have a 16-year-old or something come in, and there might be some things that we need to correct, and so we would go not necessarily to the learn to train stage, but we would go to some of those regressions and start at square one, where we might have to teach them intent, or we might have to teach them how to squat correctly, and then the focus of their program might be more repetition based and just ingraining that correct way of doing things, and not trying to hit heavy numbers or or something like that.
Well, and do keep in mind now, if we did have to go quote unquote backwards, they're also at as far as our brain is concerned, they're at a different developmental level, so they're gonna get it. They're gonna understand it quicker. Yeah. So we may not use the chase your friend. We may use a different, and come along quicker.
Yeah.
But that as some people might see it going backwards, you're gonna move. You can move forward faster and a lot more effective that way. It's a lot safer too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the goal of LTAD. So
yeah, sure. So I'm sorry to interrupt you though. Where are we going next?
So the next stage is going to be train to train, and so this is going to be males 12 to 16 and females 11 to 15, and so you're getting more into your getting closer to a varsity sport age, middle school, getting closer to that. Really preparing for that. And so your train to train is really, okay, now that we've established this base, and we are learning how to train properly, so now we're actually going to train for the sport that we're getting ready to play. So this is really important here, because this is the stage at which kids are most likely going to start going through puberty, and they're going to be hitting their peak height velocity, which means they're growing at their fastest rate that they're going to grow. And so we're starting to see more physical changes at this point, and that's why we're going to start to really hammer home more learning to strain, and really start pushing them a little more. And the training is going to be a little more structured. Okay. And so that's how it's going to kind of differ from the learn to train. Now,
are we starting to really narrow into a sport now? I mean, more geared towards a sport or not?
This one's still going to be more general. Okay. Once we get to more like the train to compete and train to win stages, that's going to be more sports specific. But yeah, the train to train, it's really when the training starts to get a little more intense, and we really start trying to grind a little more, and make it a little more intense, and make them strain.
And I feel that we have parents that contact us, and no offense to the parents, I understand what they want Johnny swinging the bat better. I understand that, but skipping over this phase is going to make that trying to swing the bat better, trying to play the position better, more ineffective. I mean, it's not going to be one thing. I don't think it's going to be as effective, but it's definitely not going to be as safe.
Definitely not. And so, like we've compared the stages before, is like you said, building a house, laying a good foundation. Well, I like to think of the train to train phase as layering on bricks to that house. So you're continuing to build it up. Okay. And so the focus of this stage is going to be increasing muscle mass and strength. So building armor, and that's what your muscle mass is when you're playing sports. Is building up armor. And so, and yeah, like you said, skipping over this phase could be really dangerous for a kid, because a lot of injuries happen when a kid's physiology, their musculature doesn't match their skill level, and so they've neglected that general preparation work and started focusing more on the sport specific work, and their bodies just aren't ready for the skills that they're trying to demand of themselves. And so that's where a lot of injuries occur, and that's what Dr. Jim Andrews was really hitting home on, that they really need to focus more on just the general training, getting their bodies ready for the skills that they're asking of themselves.
Yeah, you mentioned this in the introduction of what LTAD was, and I want to go back to that, because you mentioned some actual injuries that we're seeing in younger kids that we used to see just in professional athletes, and because of it's basically a lot of skipping over all these phases, but especially this one. Give us some examples of that, of the injuries that we see.
Yeah, so a big one in baseball is Tommy John, and
Right.
that's an overuse injury of throwing a lot, and so
Sure.
ACL injuries as well,
Right.
and so you're going to see that female soccer players are some of the most high probability athletes to tear an ACL for multiple reasons. So
Right.
those are the main
Main
few.
ones.
I mean,
I'm thinking. Rotator cuff damage
Yeah,
could be
rotator
pretty much
cuff,
any joint.
yeah, any soft tissue injury really.
Right.
I mean, hamstring pulls. That a lot of that has to do with just overuse, and their bodies aren't physically ready for the demand they're trying to get.
Right. Exactly. So no, that makes sense. We're beating the heck out of that on purpose because, yes, we want to develop athletes, and we've done that. We've got well now, as of just recently, 20 scholarships to our name, and we're very proud of that. But developing them the safe way, developing them for life, is something that is very important to us. But continue on with the train for train. So
Yeah. So strength is the mother of all qualities, and I've heard that said before, and I really had to think about it. What does that
that should
mean?
be like over your front door.
Exactly. It's like something I should hang up in my locker.
Exactly.
Some
I think Hunter has it over his
I'm
front
sure
door.
he does.
So,
Yeah, he probably looks at it a lot. No, but no, you think about it. Whenever you sprint, jump, throw, you're overcoming inertia. And,
Okay.
and what do you have to do to overcome inertia? It's getting stronger, be able to produce more force. And
Right.
so a lot of people, they think that they miss the point when you really have to focus on building a base before you can specialize.
Right.
And so building up that strength and increasing muscle mass is one of the key ways that we can do that in this train-to-train stage.
Okay.
And so another thing to think about with athletes at this age is a surplus of strength has the possibility to trump superior technique. And
So, okay, wait a second. A surplus of strength has the ability to trump.
a superior technique. And so
Okay, explain that.
What I mean by that is, and especially at the intermediate level, it's often overlooked. And so, for an example, let's say an athlete comes up to a football coach and he's like, "Coach, I'm putting the perfect block on him, but he still just keeps bull rushing through me.
Right.
He keeps knocking me off my feet." And he's like, "I'm doing the technique you showed me to do, and,
Sure.
and this kid's doing it perfectly." But the fact of the matter is, he's going up against a kid twice his size, and he's twice as strong, and the other kid might not have the best technique,
Right.
but he's stronger, he's bigger, he's faster, and so
Right.
at the intermediate level, it shows itself more than where you'd be at the professional level, and everybody's physically elite, and that's where your technique comes into more importance.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So, and I know this is a phase that a lot of people want us to get to because a lot of that other stuff is developmental, but this is still developmental. I mean, we're building that, like you say, that strong second phase foundation. Let's call it. So,
Yeah, exactly.
what else is parts of that? I mean, what else are we missing here? Or are we?
Yeah. So another thing to touch on would be something called minimum effective dose. And so
Okay.
minimum effective dose is basically establishing a point of training where you basically, there's a point where you're a point in training where if you hit a certain limit, you're only doing more damage. And so you can only do so much good, and then it's kind of like the more is better attitude, where
Right.
more is not always better. So it's in the same in training. If you keep on doing more workouts and you're working out, like you said, 8 days a week, trying to just keep on going, then it's not always going to end up better for you. And so
Right. Could be spinning your wheels or could be doing damage.
Right. And so that's what it's called, point of diminishing returns. And so, you hit a certain plateau where, you're going to see improvements. But then, if you keep going past that, it's going to actually hurt you.
Okay.
And so, for us as trainers, it's important for us to be able to recognize, when an athlete comes in and they might be beat from practices outside of here or another workout at school, and so we have to be able to recognize that and say, all right, like we need to dial it back a little bit and maybe not focus as much on straining today, or
Sure.
really pushing it hard. So, and that just comes with experience and just
Sure.
being able to recognize that as a trainer.
So we've gone through the repetition phase where we've got those basic movements down. We're doing them correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're starting to really build. I mean, this is the building strength phase, the real big building strength phase.
Yep.
And I like the way you're spending time in this phase, not only to build the strength, but find that sweet spot of frequency, intensity, time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is the key to fitness is frequency, intensity, and time.
Yep.
And not going overboard. Too many times we see that, and this is actually what Dr. Andrews was talking about, was warning people about the too much, and more is not always better. And it's funny. I spoke about it in a recent podcast about the people with a very strong work ethic. Their answer is, keep working.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying is, once you've established that, once you've gotten to that phase, you really need to find out where is your effective dose
Mm-hmm.
of exercise and training.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, and that covers it for the learn to train and train to train. And moving on to next week, we said we're going to cover the train to compete and train to win. And so that's really getting into your varsity sports and collegiate professional when you've trained, you built this base, and then now you're actually playing for when wins and losses they mean more. And so
we're going to get into that next week.
Yeah, and then also the active for life. And
about to say, because this is the one I wanted to get to. I can't wait to get to, because what about the rest of us?
Right, and that's, the majority of people listening
Right.
and the people we're trying to reach is that when sports are over, that's the goal, active for life. And
Sure.
How do we get to that? And we're gonna touch on that next episode.
And he says, I should say if sports ends.
Yeah, if sports.
Because nobody says it has to, and it hasn't in my life.
Exactly.
I'm 54 now, and I'm going to my 9th and 10th World Championship this year. I'll be 55 on the 10th, and I have no plans to stop.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say, okay, great example there. And what he's saying about the active for life, that's coming up. We're going to discuss that. Hang on, because if you're interested in for yourself and you're an adult, listen, and hey, what about me? We're going to get into that. We're going to come into that. You fit into the scale too. Actually, if you've never done anything, you've already fitted in the scale before now.
Yep.
Because it doesn't matter what your age is. We want to make sure that you understand physical literacy. We want to get through the learn to train, the train fields, and what have you. But if I go too deep into this, I'm going to start giving away too many secrets to what we got coming up next. Listen, this is a lot of information, I know. And when Charlie brought this to me to talk about long-term athletic development and the way this system develops, I just felt the need to get this information out and let everybody know that that there's a certain form that you want to go through, certain pattern you want to take as far as developing your athlete or developing your child, whether they're an athlete or not. We can't stress enough. This isn't just for athletes, but it's a lot of information. I know that. So if you have any questions, don't think twice about giving us a call, and call me at 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. Reach out to me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. Of course, that's our website. Got an info page there, and also Charlie's info is on that website also. And you can reach out to Facebook, contact us that way, which is Personal Edge Fitness, and hit me up at Twitter at Team PE. Any of those questions that we can answer about that. Safety is the key here, but at the same time, we want to develop the best athletes. We want to do everything we can to help not only your athlete, not only your kid that's not an athlete, but you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I appreciate you joining me, Charlie.
Thank you.
See you next time.